Hello, and a warm welcome to you all. Thanks so much for joining us. My name is Mark Morley, and this is the IT Business Partner Playbook, a new series where I'll be joined every week by business relationship managers and business partners from around the globe. I'll be inviting them to share their thoughts and feelings on the role, as well as the tools and techniques that they picked up and honed along the way. Our hope is that by sharing this with our community, we can help grow the awareness of this critical capability and empower those that are already using it. Last week I met with Martin Krangu, who was a great example of someone who has other people's best interests at heart and has taken the time to understand the needs of his business and his IT capabilities well enough to deliver significant value for both. And I also really enjoyed hearing about his volunteer work and how rewarding it was for him. So for anyone who missed that chat, you can find the video on the Executive Education Online YouTube channel, and the audio is on Spotify, and I'll share links in the description below. So, on to episode 5, and I'm delighted to welcome our first guest from outside of the UK, in fact, well outside of the UK, in Brazil. Bruna Collado is a BRM for Unilever, where she's been for nearly 2 years. We actually have a spotlight on Unilever in our Executive Education Business Relationships course. They fully understand the value of BRM, and they've actually defined business partnering purpose as a focus on driving sustainable business growth for them. So I'm sure this has been a wonderful environment for Bruna to start her BRM journey. So prior to Unilever, Bruna was a people manager and a project manager for over a decade, 2 roles which I'm sure provided a great foundation for her current role. So Bruna, I'd love to hand over to you for an introduction, and then we can conversar. I hope I got that right.
Yes, thank you so much for the warm introduction, Mark. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm going to start maybe by bringing up some information on my background and where I am located. So I'm located in Latin America, Brazil, and I have been in IT world for about 22 years. So please don't count on age. And I started my career actually in the technical background. I started working with mainframes in IBM in about 22 years ago. It was actually my first role. So I started being part of operations team. Then I moved to a support role, became the team leader, and then finally the manager of a technical team. Then I decided I wanted something different, and I shifted my career to project management, to a project management role. And there was working as a project manager in infrastructure projects before cloud was on Spot. Then I started to work in cloud projects, a lot of migration projects. It was outstanding at the beginning, but at some point, the beginning and the end of the project and not being able to have a solid relationship with my clients was something that I found that I would like to be different. So at that point, I thought that maybe working on account management team would be something that I would be interested in. So then after, I think it was about 18 years working in IBM, I moved to Microsoft, and I was part of an account team where I was able to develop partners in cloud business. I worked there for almost 2 years, and it was an amazing experience, but I was still a little bit too focused on incident management more than I would like to. And the fun part of the strategic planning was still not taking about, not even, I guess, 50% of my time. So I started to think again, what could be my next step? So then I decided to invest on a career where I could have a role that could play a more strategic piece. And I shifted my career, started to study, and took the BRM certification, which was extremely helpful for me to be able to start in the BRM role, as I had no hands-on knowledge, but then I had the theory knowledge, so that helped me a lot.
Wonderful. So, and where did you actually first see the BRM? Did you see a BRM role advertised, or did you kind of look into the roles that would have more of a people interaction and found that?
Yeah, so that was curious. So I was thinking about my next step, and I was searching in LinkedIn for roles, and then I found one. And then instead of just looking for roles, I started to look at roles that were available in companies that I was interested in. So I found this one role in Unilever. Uh, so it was there, the role, the specifications, and then I found it very interesting because it had a combination of a lot of skills that I already had and still had some skills that I needed to develop. And I found the role very interesting. And then I said, I honestly I never have heard of BRM role before. And then I decided to do some homework and search about, do we have a solid certification in business relationship management? So because then I had in my mind, I have the two PMI certifications, the PMP and the ACP. So with PMI in mind, I thought there should be something for BRM out there. Then I started to do research. I found APMG, and then I read about the certification, got it very interested. I saw IT winners in there, and then I thought that sounds like interesting because the role was a very robust role. I was interested because it did not have 100% of the qualifications, but if I was extremely interested, and I was like, let me go deep dive on this, do everything that I can to understand about the role and see if I'm indeed interested on that. So when I started to study about the certification, then we spoke about the prep course, and when I started to study, I felt that the role was exactly what I was looking for, which was to be able to help my clients with strategy, to have a broad view of the business, and especially it's the kind of role for people that are curious, that are open to learn, and that love to communicate. Also, the certification gave me a possibility to be able to structure myself without having hands-on knowledge about the work. So that was extremely helpful.
Yeah, well, that's great. And have you found, because there are many BRM roles that we see advertised all over the place. We've worked with many BRMs. BRM varies differently from one place to the next, and we have trained a few people that have kind of come across this content, have all these wonderful ideas, and they kind of know what BRM really means, and then they take it back to the company and they're kind of shot down because that's not what BRM means to them.
Yeah.
I know within Unilever they really understand BRM, so that must have been a breath of fresh air for you to go into a company that really allowed you to kind of put all of this and learning and knowledge to the test.
Exactly. And one thing I feel that it's very interesting is that the role was like we had a previous role that was eliminated, and then the BRMs came into picture, especially in my department. So we are now going through on a very big organizational change. So as you might have seen in LinkedIn or in open media. And we're now expanding in a very interesting moment where we are expanding the scope of BRM, because initially we were cloud business relationship managers. So we were more concerned on how to help the different business units to take the most out of cloud by working with our cloud service providers and with our internal teams. And now we're expanding the role so we can interact with more teams that ideally can benefit from the BRM role. So one thing that I understand that is key and that I see happening a lot in Unilever is the investment on BRM. So when I started about almost 2 years ago there, I was already BRM certified, the first BRMP certification. And then we had 1 year on hands-on work, learning from my peers, always doing internal mentoring, because mentoring is something that from day one in my previous roles, I loved to take advantage of. And our director understand that we could do more, we could go beyond. And then we started to prepare for the CBRM certification, which was, again, an investment that was being made on us so we could take move our team to a next step. So it was an amazing experience to give us more knowledge after we already have the ability to do hands-on work. So that was fantastic.
Yeah, that's great. They do have that investment, but they obviously see the value in it. So for them, it's it's not a tricky thing to do. What do you find from your previous roles, particularly project management? What do you think are the skills that you've kind of transferred and that served you the best from those roles?
I would say number one, the ability to influence people without authority. Because, well, in BRM, I understand that one thing that we must always do is any role that you manage stakeholders, you need to be curious and never leave this curiosity die. So one thing that I had to learn a lot and do as a project manager was because of the structure that I was in at that time, I had to make sure that I could manage projects without having formal authority over people.
Right.
And to do this magic was something that I had to learn and do for about 8 years. So when I shifted my career to BRM, it's something that it's already part of me. So I think that was the number one, the ability to influence people without authority, something that helps a lot of reading, articles, even small articles, or even I see that the PMI material also helped me when I was a project manager. Back when I started to shift to BRM, I see that the certification material also helped. You see, yeah, I'm always going to reference to certifications because to me, I think it's comforting if I have some kind of standard material that I can refer to whenever I ask, am I on the right path? I like to have something formal that I can refer to. And second thing, stakeholder management, to make sure that you ask questions to people that are going to be affected by the results of the work that is going to be done. So really talk to the stakeholders. If possible, look at the stakeholder in the eye. If you have the chance to do the work in person, I still find it very valuable to do work in person. If not, have the habit, and I say this because in project management, when we are stuck in the middle of the meetings, sometimes we keep our cameras off, and opening the camera is a way to have this conversation by looking in the eye of your stakeholder. So not being shy, having straight conversations, ask the questions. If you want to know the answers, you have to ask the questions. So going back to basics, really, and being curious about the stakeholders, asking what they want, what they need, understanding about their goals, their OKRs, making notes, making sure that you revisit the plans that you create with your stakeholders at least on a quarterly basis or whatever your company understands that is reasonable. And I think communication would be key, especially if you're in a project management environment with no formal authority. I think that helps a lot when you shift your career.
Yeah. Is there anything that's been particularly challenging for you moving into this role that you didn't do before, and it's taken you a while to get used to it, or you've struggled with it at all?
I think working and learning at the same time is always challenging.
Right.
So you're in a position where you have a small window where you can work in prepping for the job. That is a small window, and then you have already to start working in your role, but you're also learning about how to be in that role. So I think that was my main challenge: learn and work at the same time, especially in the first 6 to 8 months.
Did you find, so when I was chatting to Jeremy back in episode 1, he was saying that when he moved to his current position, because he had so much to learn about the business and he wanted to build relationships and build trust, he ended up, it was tricky not to do too much for your partners, because you want to help, you want to build up that relationship, but also you want to maintain those boundaries and not do stuff that other people should be doing. Have you found that? Was it difficult not to kind of slip back into your old patterns, your old things that you enjoyed doing?
It was challenging indeed, because one thing that you have, especially when your role is new, because when I joined, the BRM role was sort of new in the company and not known by all of the stakeholders. So when you have a new role, you're new to the role, and the role is new to everyone else in the organization. It's challenging. What are the boundaries? Until where can I go? So that was challenging as well, because as I was learning the boundaries, I had to also show the boundaries of my role to the others. So that was very challenging. One other thing that helped me, mentor. So having a mentor and saying, no, you're until here, and then beyond this, it's out of your scope. Not trying to embrace everything and everyone, because there are lots of stakeholders. For example, if you work in a multinational company, your universe is going to be pretty big. So at one point you feel that it's wonderful because you have a big universe that you can work with. At the same point, you can't start everything at once. So you have to pick which stakeholders you're going to invest on first. And sometimes there is the chance that, for example, I invested in some of my stakeholders that they were not there yet. They had other priorities going on, and they were stakeholders that, because of the nature of their business, they would demand less from me, while others would demand a lot, and where I could generate more value. So things that you learn as you progress. And again, as you learn in the role, you don't have anyone to tell, yeah, this is better, that one not that much. So as you learn in the go. One thing, so that was challenging. But what I tried to do to overcome the challenge of not embracing everything, and to have kind of, I don't know if I like this term, the free of jail card, whenever I was to talk to someone. I like to be honest, because the truth is always the best answer to everything. So I was saying, I'm new to the role, I'm new to the company, so we're going to learn together. And so they could have an expectation and be open to feedback. And that was really helpful, because people were warming, and I had some people that offered me to talk about the company to help me in my beginning. So
okay, that's great. Yeah, no, people appreciate honesty, they appreciate communication. It's been the same there. Have you found that it's been difficult to explain your role to certain partners that you work with, either within IT or within the business?
I think outside of the business, I find that sometimes it sounds a bit easier, because they don't have any reference. So what you explain, I think it's easier for them to understand about the role. Internally, I think the challenging was that they might compare your role to the previous similar role that you had in the company. And then sometimes they challenge you as to, but that was done in the past. Why it's no longer done? Because I see value in that. So you're not doing that. And sometimes to question if did the company make the best decision in changing the role? So that was some challenges. One of the challenges that I faced was questioning if the decision to change the role was better. And one thing interesting is that we always need, of course, to provide the response and to restate the value of the BRM role. And as we were progressing and as we were showing that having a broader role, that the BRM could do more than just the previous role, that we were not some sort of program managers with a fancy name. So that really showed value to the customers, and they started to understand and be on board. And well, the result of that is that now we're expanding the BRM role without being just cloud BRMs, but BRMs that are going to help the entire Tech Foundation teams. So,
And is the team itself likely to expand as well? Do you think they'll take on more BRMs to cover more of the business?
there is a chance, yes, there is a chance that we expand the teams, because we are now at the I wouldn't say maybe in the middle of the organizational change that we are. We're kind of settling down to understand what the changes are going to represent to all teams. So we're one of the teams that are going to have to adapt to changes, but there is a chance, yes, for sure, to expand the team. The team that exists today is very keen on embracing a larger scope. And it would be outstanding to have more BRMs to come and contribute, of course.
Yeah, that's great. Where does the BRM function sit within Unilever?
So initially we were sitting in the cloud platform, because of course we were a cloud business relationship managers. We were sitting in the technical piece. So we were the BRMs that are under the provider side of the house. And then we used to provide services to the business. That's how we were sitting on the provider. Now it's going to be a little bit beyond that, but still we're not going to be tied to business. We're going to provide services, but we're still going to be tied to the provider side of the house. Not even a dot line to business we have. Exactly.
Okay. So you roll up into the CIO eventually.
Exactly.
Okay. So what with the different partners you work with, are there kind of common challenges that you find that are same with each of the partners you deal with, or are they all quite different depending on the kind of person you're dealing with?
I would say we can find patterns on that. If I must say one, I would say technology novelties, especially AI. Because what happens is that today everybody wants to take advantage of AI to be more productive. However, how can you use AI in a way that it's really going to benefit you and not just be one thing that you say you're doing, that you have in your team, but that is actually not generating value? So I see that being able to help with the team to understand what options they have to fulfill their needs is what we try to do the most. And we count a lot on our cloud service providers on that, so that they can help us translate what news do they have that we can share with our stakeholders. So you want to have AI in your HR department. What AI solutions do we have today in the market? And then we explore that. So one thing that we did a lot in 2024 were workshops to showcase what is out there, to showcase business cases, even outside of the company, so they can have an idea of what AI can do to them. So as a result, we had a lot of initiatives that were successful in this field, and we are going to have a massive investment in 2025 in AI. So the idea is that we can expand this even more. And this is something that, like for IT, BRMs, I think it's very valuable to have a deeper and sharpen knowledge in AI, because it's there. We need to use it. We need to have a basic understanding, so we can, so we're not just repeating words that we do not actually know how the technology per se is going to help us. So I think it's interesting. Me, on my end, I decided to take an AI basic certification, so I could understand about machine learning and covering the basics. And then after that, after I have these basics covered, then I can move to understanding, okay, now I have the basic knowledge, and then I am able to have a conversation to try to spot which AI solutions I have that my business units could benefit from.
Yeah, and that's really the wonderful thing about BRMs, is that they can sit back and kind of take an aerial view, because people in IT are obviously very familiar with all these technologies that are coming on. They know all about them, but it's maybe not as easy for them to know how those can be applied through the business, where the BRMs know what the business is trying to achieve very well, know what capabilities are out there, and that's when they can marry the two. So that's great that you can provide that to those guys. Was that a BRM initiative to say that we're going to go out there and look for these things? Is that something that you guys just took on yourselves, or is it something the business was asking for?
It was something that we decided, because then we had a very big workshop at the beginning of the year where we were talking about strategy and refining our goals for 2024. And that was one of the key outputs that we understood that could generate value to the business.
Wow.
And this is where we came up with AI as a key trend, and with workshops in a way. And the way that we did the workshop was, again, face-to-face workshops. Some of them were hybrid, but we saw that doing the face-to-face workshop was magical, because people would see as a gift for them to see, I'm going to that cloud service provider in person. I'm going to see their office. I'm going to have someone taking a look at looking at me and giving me information about something. Whereas the remote is good, but you're not going to grab your phone and sometimes someone texted you and you're responding in the middle of the training. So I see that the focus is, and the feedback we got from the training was that the focus is different. We're able to really have an immersion on the topic if we're there face to face. But that was a key initiative that came from the BRM. One interesting thing that we used to do, we refer to Gartner very often, because the way that we like to position options, and that's actually one thing that we love to do, instead of saying exactly how to get there, to provide options so that they can do, all right, is it within the budget that I have? Is it going to be delivered within the time frame I need, or the scope that I need, so that they can make the decision as to what they want and what they can spend or invest on whenever they have something.
Yeah, no, that's great. Do you have a strategy for the BRM team or capability? Do you have aware of IT strategies, or do you just have one strategy for the business and then each of you know kind of how you're going to help drive towards that?
Yeah, we do have strategy for the BRMs only. So the way that we work is we have a major IT strategy, a major company strategy, and then we cascade this until it sits with the BRM layer. And the thing is that our strategies is one of the last ones to be ready, because we need to make sure that we tie our strategy, our general BRM strategy, and two are personal strategies, which must be tied to our stakeholder strategy. So, for example, if there are any key strategic project that must happen, that project is tied to our goals in a very granular way, so it's clear as to the goals that we have to achieve in a certain year. And the refinement is something that we spend a lot of effort on to make sure that we have a clear path to follow.
Okay. And so these different projects that you're working on, I assume they're continually evolving as well to make sure that they are kind of the right project, or the project that's going to deliver the most value to the business.
Exactly. And we also look at projects, also considering the cloud programs that we have. For example, this year we had a huge investment in modernization and optimization. So then we start to look for opportunities in this context. And then each year we have a major cloud project that is going to be key. And then we look for candidates, we showcase what are going to be the gains for the people that are going to participate in that project, and also for the community to understand that we're actively looking for opportunities for them every year, and making sure that they're going to be made aware of the trends that are being a hit in the market, and things that we can use within the company.
Excellent. And so these are these annual kind of reports or publications that you send out, or do you do more regular publications as well?
Right. So we have an annual report that is generated with what is going to be the key topic of the year, and this is what we are going to pursue in that year. However, we have quarterly evaluations as to how we are in the plan. For example, modernization, of course, there is a tendency that when you speak about modernization, though you have many interesting fronts you can focus on, it's very likely that at the beginning you're going to be focused on cost reduction. So, of course, this was the driver for 2024. It was not the only one, but was the driver. So that was something that we were watching every quarter to make sure that where we are in terms of the strategy, what are the reductions that we experienced, and to be able to change things on the fly, because sometimes when we start those projects, what happens is that we have the candidates, we did filtering, we spoke to the stakeholders, but something is going to happen in the middle of the road where you understand that you have to change the scope and adapt. So one more thing that we try to keep alive also is the agile mindset and some agile best practices we try to keep live, as to we need to be flexible with the scope to make sure that what we can deliver as a minimum viable product at the end of the day, right? So this is key to us as well, and we try to embrace it in the day-to-day work.
Right. Do you work closely or at all with other BRM teams within Unilever in other geographies?
That's curious. No, we only have our team. So what happens is that we were able to interact with teams that have a similar scope. We do have differences, but sometimes part of the scope is similar in a way. But no, we are the one and only BRM team. So it's a global team where that is distributed between what we call our hubs. So we have one person in North America, I'm the one from Latin America, people in Europe and in India to work with the different regions, making sure that we have people working in different time zones and people that understand the reality of the markets.
Right. How many relationships or partners do you have personally within Unilever?
That is tricky because we have it's a vast amount of people because what happens is that, for example, in our day-to-day work, so I can't say a number by heart, but what happens is that though we are working in the way that we work with another IT team that interfaces with the business, so we don't interact with business directly per definition. This is not 100% true in reality because, for example, part of the workshops that we organize, we invite people from business to be there so they can ask questions and see, okay, this is good in theory, but in my day-to-day, here's what happens. So how can I get past this problem? And so we do interact, we end up interacting with business often. And once business sees your face and knows your ID, eventually they're going to send you a message asking about something. And the way that we try to do so we don't overlap, again, a challenge in multinational companies is that of course, we talk to business, but we make sure that our stakeholders, the mid layer that is in there, is aligned as to whatever conversations we had with business, and we keep adding them and positioning them about anything that is happening.
Okay. What's the biggest challenge you face day to day as a BRN, if any?
That's tricky. Maybe I could say two. In different contexts. Maybe one of the challenge was when I started a position as a new person to the role in a new big company, and knowing what to prioritize. Will I first know business? Will I first learn about my role? Will I first care to work with people from my department that are key so I have an understanding about how my team as a cloud service provider works before going to talk to business, and not to get lost in this lots of communication channels that we open. I think that was maybe the biggest challenge in the beginning, I would say. And the second challenge was to keep the teams engaged, while sometimes you have to show the boundaries to the person. Because what happens is that when you say that you're engaged with Google, with Microsoft, with the cloud service providers, sometimes people understand that they have a free pass to ask for any training at any time for free, because the magic is going to happen if they contact you, which is not the case, of course. And how are you're going to not just say, but act in a way where you show that it's not exactly like that, but still you can help them and they can still take significant advantage of the services without having them to say, oh no, but this is not what I expected, so I'm going to close this door and not come back. So that would say I would say is always something challenging.
Okay. Do you have regular meetings with your partners to kind of establish, where you're going, what they can expect from you, and what you need from them?
Yes, we have a monthly governance meeting with the stakeholders for your region. For example, I have one with Latin America, but I also have one platform, which is a platform that provides services to all the market ITs. We're changing this terminology, but let's use it until this year. So there is a platform that provides services to the market ITs. I have one of those, and I have my market IT, which is that consumes services from the platforms. The way that they work is very different. So what I do is I have a monthly governance meeting with each, and we have the QBR meetings, which is a more executive meeting where we revisit where we are with the goals, or how we call here, with the OKRs that each team has, make sure that we share the same way we share progress. We ask what's the perception from our stakeholders, and then we love to use the methodology in CBRM certification. So relationship strategy on a page, make sure that we have it customized for ourselves. But meeting frequently is key. And of course, whenever especially this is special for if you work with a team, for BRMs that work with teams from Latin America, where the face-to-face proves to be a game changer. I think even higher when you work with Europe or North America, is the face-to-face conversation, being able to have lunch with their stakeholders and having a random conversation when people can add something about their personal life is a game changer. So,
In fact, all of the people that I've spoken to in the previous episodes have all said the same thing. There's no real alternative to the face-to-face. There are kind of ways around it, but there's nothing better than being able to get to know someone, appreciate someone, and get to know people personally, because we work with people. So if you're just talking to part of a chain, it's not the same thing as knowing who you're talking to, what they enjoy, what they dislike, that kind of thing. So that's it's really key. So we spoke about the challenges that you have. Is there anything that you kind of look forward to doing every day that you think, actually, I can't wait to do this? Just part of the role that really you enjoy?
One thing that I love to do is I love to start working about 20 minutes earlier, at least, so I can sit and organize my day. Because what happens is that though BRM, and the way that BRM is positioned here in Unilever is more of a strategic BRM rather than a tactical one. However, it's not rare that we are pulled into tactical work and emergency things. Yes, and emergency things or people asking questions. So the way that I like to do is start my work at least 20 minutes earlier, so I can plan for the day and see what I have open in my Kanban that I need to focus, that I need to make sure that they happen on that day. So I make sure that I organize to have them prioritized, and that never start with my emails. So I leave them, especially for time zone differences, I leave them at the end. And one thing that I don't do on a daily basis, but I like to do at least on a monthly basis until today, is make sure that I talk to someone new in the company at least once a month. Why? Because sometimes I think it's tempting when I know the directors or when you know the senior managers that you keep, okay, yeah, I know my stakeholders, I work with them closely. But I think it's important for you to have a foot on someone that is in the ground, having the real kind of having what some people say, having the real work done. I think it's interesting to have contact with these people, because with everyone, because everyone can contribute and can bring feedback on, from my standpoint, this is where the pain is. So that helped a lot, because, for example, we visited a warehouse and we saw products that were being damaged because of how the pallets were being configured. Or we understand that there is a pain point for certain lines of products that we sell that are organic, where the expiration date is lesser than the other existing products. So the logistics must be different for those. So this all we figure out just because we went to the warehouse and we were analyzing a system that was going to read new tags that we were implemented in a certain factory that we have. And then we learned about the whole reality, and then we started a broader discussion as to what could be done, how technology could be applied to help them reduce the waste of products that they had to a smaller percentage. So I think if you the magic happens when you're not looking at your day-to-day work. So after you make sure that your day-to-day work happened, you need to also make sure that you have time to step back and look around and talk to different stakeholders as well from different levels.
That's really great. I love that. And there are always those people in your business who have been doing something and they know it inside out, but no one else has ever asked the question. So they have this kind of critical information that just never makes the surface. So the fact that you kind of go looking for these people is really great. Are there any tools? You mentioned the strategy on a page there. Are there any other tools that you kind of just can't live without, that you have that, in your toolkit and you use it frequently and you wouldn't live without it?
One thing, well, we do have a repository that we use where we host critical information and kind of standard information from a stakeholder management standpoint. But I use something else, especially when I'm working with my cloud service providers. I like to use Azure DevOps to create boards to track my work, because especially when you have the end of year discussions, you have, of course, to track things that you did. And I like to use Azure DevOps to track some of the work and the initiatives that I do. So I use them for two fronts. Initiatives, key initiatives that I have with my stakeholders. And the second is what we call the upskilling portion. So trainings, either remote or on site, that are offered throughout 2024. So at the end of the day, I can generate one report and say, for upscaling, this was what was delivered to your team or to the region, for example, of Latin America or whatever platform, whatever the BRM delivers. So I like to have it. So it's easy to provide a report at the end of the year. And it's handy for me if I have to do a review as to, am I delivering valuable training or upskilling opportunities that are needed by your team?
Yeah.
I like the tool for that reason, the ability to change, to add progress. It's something personal. And something else that I like to use, more ancient. Sometimes I refer to Excel, depending on what I have to do. But I like to add Excel to OneNote, because things that I like to do, we use Copilot for meeting minutes. So we have that information. I like to have an automation that sends this meeting minutes to my OneNote so I can refer to it, do a Control F and find out someone spoke about this. What was discussed? I don't remember. So if you have to search for it, I don't know, in a repository that takes a long time to respond, it's tricky. But if I find it in my OneNote session, it's easy and it's formal to everyone. So this is for my personal organization only.
Yeah. Jeremy was actually saying, because he did a talk on AI at the community event in the UK, but he was saying one of the ways he uses AI is personally to kind of take care of the admin side of the role. So he's kind of spending more time on the value add stuff, and he uses AI to take care of the mundane stuff. So that's it can be very useful.
And the magic to me, like recently that I got, was the can you just give me 1 minute?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
All right, back. Thank you.
All right.
So one thing that I felt that the magic happened was when I started to use the Copilot, but I know that there are other tools in the market, because one thing that really helps is whatever tool you have. If I could give one advice, for example, for something to gain productivity for maybe not only BRMs, but would be to use AI that you can use to help you find information faster, to get rid of meeting minutes. This was magic to me, because then it's easy for you to have a summary or to refer to something that was discussed on a meeting. So using AI in this sense to make sure information is handy was key for to my personal productivity, and it's easier for you to get organized with that.
I find being a man, it's hard for me to multitask. So if I'm trying to take notes in a meeting, I find I'm not listening to it properly. So I'm kind of listening, but I'm not understanding what's going on.
Exactly.
You end up having to read your own notes to find out what went on in the meeting.
Exactly.
Do you know many BRMs outside of Unilever? Are you part of the local community, and do you kind of look to each other for support?
This is one of my goals for 2025, because the short answer is unfortunately not. The BRMs that I had contact with were only the BRMs that were part of the training that I took for a CBRM. So that was valuable to get insights and see how other BRMs are positioning themselves and what challenges they're facing. But today I'm strict to my co-workers and to those BRMs that I met that we eventually interact via LinkedIn. But one thing that I would love to do was to start interacting more with the BRM community.
Yeah, I mean, definitely in the UK where we've had a lot of work, they're a fantastic community, and actually there's pockets all around the globe. They are growing, and it's definitely something that I recommend BRMs in any region. Definitely look out. The Institute have kind of formed communities everywhere, and other BRMs have created communities. But they're a great bunch of people, and everyone's kind of always happy to offer help and advice and guidance, lend an ear, lend a shoulder to cry on. So it's reaching out to those guys.
Yeah, that's interesting. I got one feedback from two coworkers actually, that they joined a session for Crafted for BRMs. They joined this session about 2 months ago, and they said that it was wonderful to talk to other BRMs to see their hurdles, their successes. And this is where this goal from me came, which is I want to do this in 2025 because I think it's a valuable shortcut to hear from others, lessons learned, right?
I mean, there's kind of best practice out there, but then there's kind of the real practice, hearing what people are actually coping with day to day. And it's a tough role, business partnering, business relationship management. We've seen many people that are going through highs and lows. So to be able to share that with each other in an informal format, it's comforting, and there's always lots of great ideas bouncing around. So definitely encourage you to do that. So Indra, come towards the end of our time here. So I always like to finish with just some. If you could hand over one piece of advice to the people that are listening from you in your role, what would you suggest to other people that might make their lives a bit easier?
I would say be curious. Keep curiosity alive, basically, because I think that if you're always curious and if you're always asking questions and always trying to go deeper to understand your stakeholders, because I think that's the most important thing for you to do as a BRM, I think the answer is going to be in there. So never lose curiosity despite all the work and all the craziness on the day-to-day work.
Wonderful. I think that what you spoke about earlier, where you're looking for those people that you don't normally talk to because they might have that information you need, that's a kind of great representation of that curiosity. So I think that's wonderful. So I definitely think that's something people should take away as well. Then go and talk to the people you don't normally talk to.
Exactly.
Great stuff. Well, thanks, Bruno. I've really enjoyed today's conversation. Thanks so much for taking part. It was great to have someone outside of the UK, and especially someone from all the way over in Brazil. So it's wonderful to have you on. And I wish you the best for the rest of the year. Hopefully speak to you again soon.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for this opportunity, Mark.
That's a pleasure. And thank you to everyone for listening, and please look out for future episodes. Thanks very much.